All right, so we're going to talk about independent and dependent clauses. So we need to understand what a phrase is, a dependent clause, and an independent clause. I want you to think about it as layers. So phrases are step one, dependent clauses would be considered step two, and our independent clause is our third step. So let's start with one. When we have a phrase, it's simply a group of words. So this is just a group of words. And this group of words is either missing a verb or a subject. And it definitely, because of this, does not have a complete thought. So it's a group of words. Now, number two is our dependent clause. Our dependent clauses are like the next step up. And this next step up would mean that it has a verb and it has a subject, but it's missing this complete thought. So this is still not there. So because of it, it's not considered being able to be independent. It has to still hold on to something, and we'll talk about that later. Our third level, this is what I call the 3-point test, because it has to have these three things for a clause to be considered independent. It could stand alone, it needs nothing else. It has to have a verb, it has to have a subject, and it has to have a complete thought. So it has all three things. Independent clauses are often referred to as simple sentences. So these are like the basic sentence that you can come up with. So let's look at an example. I am a girl. A girl. I am a girl. So I is definitely my subject. My verb is am. So I have one, I have two. Is it a complete thought? I am a girl. Yes, there's a complete thought. This would be considered an independent clause. So let's look at what a dependent clause would be and a phrase. We're going to look at that in the next. All right, so on this page, we're going to one more time recap. So an independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. It's also known as a simple sentence. And here are some examples. The bell rang. So our subject is the bell, our verb is rang, and that's a complete thought. The bell rang. The girl danced. Girl is our subject, danced is the verb, and it has a complete thought. Both of these pass the 3 bullet test. Subject, verb, complete thought. Now let's look at the dependent clause. The dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence. Here's an example. After the bell rang. When the girl danced. So after the bell rang, I definitely have bell, which is a subject, rang, which is the verb, but I'm missing my complete thought. Let's look at the second one. When the girl danced. Girl is my subject. Danced is the verb, but I'm missing my complete thought. So this is considered a dependent clause because it still cannot stand alone without the complete thought. So moving on, we're going to talk about compound sentences. So compound sentences, there's 2 types. Compound sentence equals 2 independent clauses. So we're going to combine 2 independent clauses together, also known as 2 simple sentences. There are 2 ways to do this. Today we're just going to focus on type 1, which is a comma plus a conjunction. So for an example, a compound sentence that we're going to make today is the bell rang and the students rushed out. What's really cool about this is On both sides of the comma and the conjunction, I have an independent clause. So the bell rang is an independent clause. Bell is my subject. Rang is my verb. And on this side, I have an independent clause. After the comma and conjunction, I have the students rushed out. Students are my subject. And what did they do? They rushed. That is my verb, and that's a complete thought. So today, we're going to learn how to combine two independent clauses with a comma and a conjunction. Now, let's discuss what a conjunction is. There's a really easy way for us to remember conjunctions. We want to remember the mnemonic device fanboys. Everybody say fanboys. And this helps us to remember the conjunctions that we'll be working with. We're going to work with for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, and we can see that the first letter in each of these spells out fanboys. So these are a list of conjunctions that we'll be using to combine two independent clauses. So if I have an independent clause here, I'm going to put a comma and a conjunction, so I'm going to write a C, and another independent clause. This is kind of like our English formula. This is what we're going to do. We're going to place an independent clause here, put a comma, and then choose one of these that makes sense, and then make another independent clause on this side. So let's look at our first example. I told you we have an independent clause, a comma plus a conjunction, and another independent clause. So here's our sentence. Unicorns are imaginary creatures, for people have never seen one in person. So here's our comma and conjunction. That means that we need to make sure that on this side of the sentence, we have a simple sentence, and on this side of the sentence, there's a simple sentence. So it's kind of like we have two simple sentences inside of our compound sentence. And if you remember what compound means, it means a mixture of things. So we have two simple sentences that are being pushed together by this comma and conjunction. So let's make sure that these really are two simple sentences. Unicorns are imaginary creatures. That sentence can stand by itself. Unicorns is a subject, are is the verb. Unicorns are imaginary creatures. That also has a complete thought. So it passes our 3-point test. Subject, verb, complete thought. Let's look at the other side. People have never seen one in person. People is our subject, have is the verb. People have never seen one in person has a complete thought also. So again, subject, verb, complete thought. Both sides of these sentences are balanced. So the comma and the conjunction in the center is appropriate because it's allowing them to be combined. So this works. Now let's talk for a second about conjunctions. So you want to make sure that you're selecting a conjunction that fits the sentence. So the word for means the same thing as because. So if you wanted to swap out the word for here for because, you could. And unicorns are imaginary creatures for or because people have never seen one in person. This one is definitely a good fit. And when we use the word for because, we want to think about it in this way. So for or because is used when you're going to put the effect first and the cause second. So here we have the effect is that unicorns are imaginary. What's the cause? People have never seen one. So here we have our effect first and then the cause. Another example of when we would want to use for or because is I am smelly because I haven't showered. The effect is that I'm smelly. I haven't showered is the cause. So that's when we would use for or because. We use and also when we are listing. We use nor under special circumstances. It's usually when we need a negative, and I'll show you how to use that because this one, I'm going to star it, is a little tricky and doesn't usually follow our rules. But is when we have an exception, or is when we're giving options. Yet is when we have an exception that's pretty rare. And so is when we are doing the opposite, it's cause and effect. So this one's cause and then effect. So cause and it leads to effect. This one's like the opposite of because. And I know this might sound like a lot of information, but we're going to go over it a lot together. Okay, so let's look at our next example. Still following the same formula. Independent clause plus a comma plus a conjunction plus an independent clause. So again, we're going to want to look at the first half of the sentence before the comma and then the second half of the sentence after the conjunction to make sure that both sides have what actually make an independent clause. So Pablo always opens the door for his mom. I have my subject Pablo. Always opens. Opens is my verb. The door for his mom. So I have a subject, I have a verb, and I have a complete thought. This is definitely an independent clause. On the second half of the sentence, people have noticed his kindness. People is the subject, have is the verb, and is this a complete thought? Yes, people have noticed his kindness. Both of these are definitely independent clauses, and then I have a comma and a conjunction. This makes sense, so I need to make sure, does my conjunction make sense? So Pablo always opens for the door for his mom, and then we are using and. We're just listing, and people have noticed his kindness. So this happens, and then this happens. So I'm just listing things that are I'm just listing things here in this sentence. Okay, let's look at our next sentence. They did not finish their reading logs, nor did they complete their math homework. So this is the one that I told you is a little bit tricky, nor. And we're going to talk about it now. You only use the word nor if the first half of your sentence has a negative, like the word not. So they did not finish their reading logs, nor did they do this. So the way that this works, we need to make sure that we really want this to mean that they did not finish their reading logs, nor did they do this. This means, and they also did not complete their math homework. So two negatives are going on in this sentence. And I know you've always heard the rule you can't have two negatives in a sentence. This is the only way that you can do it. They did not finish their reading logs, nor did they blah, blah, blah. So here I have they, which is a subject, did not. So did is the verb. And on this side, I have they as a subject, complete their math homework. These both have independent clauses. I know that this part, did they complete their math homework, does not sound like an independent clause, but this is the only one that kind of breaks the rules. When you have nor, what comes next usually by itself would sound funny, but with nor, it just works. So they did not finish their reading logs, nor did they complete their math homework. Another example could be they did not eat dinner last night, comma, nor did they eat breakfast this morning. So I know this kind of breaks what we were talking about, but this is just how nor works. All right, so we're going to do some practice together. So let's look at these sentences. Peter drove to visit his friend. They went out for dinner. We want to show a sequence of events. Which fanboy should we use? So if we want to show a sequence of events, Peter drove to visit his friend, comma, and they went out for dinner. I'm just listing things. So this would be and. All right, next. Mary thinks she should go to school. She wants to get qualifications for a new profession. So here we're supposed to be providing a reason. Mary thinks she should go to school. She wants to get the qualifications for a new profession. So this is what she wants to do because she wants to get this. So we can use for. So here we can put comma for. All right, next. And remember, if we didn't want to do for, we could use because. Alan invested a lot of money in the business. The business went bankrupt. So we want to show an unexpected result. And we talked about when we want something that's rare or odd, we're going to use yet. Something that's unexpected. So this one is yet. Doug didn't understand the homework assignment. He asked the teacher for help. So we need to show an action taken based on a reason. So Doug didn't understand the homework assignment. So he asked the teacher for help. The students didn't prepare for the test. They didn't realize how important the test was. Again, we want to give a reason. So the students didn't prepare for the test because they didn't realize. So this could be for or because. And I'm going to write because here. Okay. Susan thinks she should stay home and relax. She also thinks she should go on vacation. I want to show additional information, so I'm going to list. I'm going to use and. The doctors looked at the x-rays. They decided to operate on the patient. So we are going to give a reason. So they looked at the x-rays and then they decided this. So because they decided after the x-rays, we want to give a reason. The doctors looked at the x-rays, so they decided to operate on the patient. We went out on the town. We came home late. We went out on the town, we actually want to show a sequence of events. So we're going to do and we came home late because we're listing. Now, if you didn't want to show a sequence of events and you wanted to show a reason, we would use so. So we need to pay attention to what are we really trying to show here. Here we're just listing. We went out on the town and we came home late. Those are things that show events that happened. When we want to show a reason, we could say we went out on the town, comma, so we came home late. That's why we came home late. Both would work, but it just depends on what relationship you're trying to show. Let's do a few more together. Jack flew to London to visit his uncle. He also wanted to visit the National Museum. We want to show an addition, so we're going to use and. It is sunny. It is very cold. We're showing a contrast. So it is sunny, but it is very cold. We can use but.